have you opened it
Yeah,
yet?
no, it sounds good.
Have you opened it
Oh,
yet?
yes, yes.
Okay,
we'll
sorry.
open it up. Yes, go ahead. Fire away. We've got our first
One of the,
interlocutor, our first questioner.
One of the slides you showed a guy with horns. And I know, so we thought, well, maybe it's Satan. But some of us thought, well, maybe that's Moses. And we were wondering, do you have any insight into that?
Yes, so Moses with horns. So if you look at Exodus, and I believe it's chapter 34, Exodus chapter 34, and we're looking at verse 30, all right. This is what we have. Okay, so Moses with horns, all right. So we're looking at Exodus chapter 34, verse 30. Aaron and all the people of Israel saw Moses, behold, the skin of his face shone, and they're afraid to come near him. So after Moses had spent time talking with God, his face, his facial features changed. Then going maybe to the last verse in Exodus 34, the people of Israel would see the face of Moses, that the skin of Moses' face was shining. And Moses would put a veil over his face till he went in to speak with him, that is God. So some older translations understand that Moses had horns. And so, yeah, so here's, I think, perhaps the painting that he's got these.
It was the manna one.
Oh, the manna one. So let's maybe, let's go back here.
There it is.
Yeah, exactly. That was it. So the man on the left. So, boy, you folks are very astute at looking at these paintings here. So, yeah, you would say, well, what's going on with Moses there? Because he's the one with the staff, right? And Jesus is the one in heaven, right? Giving out finally his body, right? As the bread of life. So older translations like the King James Version understand these verses that I talked about at the end of chapter 34 as Moses having horns. But that's not absolutely correct. I'm reading from the ESV, and it simply says that his face shone, all right, with great brilliance and glory. And there's just this wonderful section at the end of 2 Corinthians 3 that actually reflects upon this. I guess no pun intended. But if you look at the end of 2 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 18, which is the last verse in 2 Corinthians chapter 3, Paul has been speaking about Moses. You can see that maybe in verse 15 of 2 Corinthians chapter 3. So he ends this, and we all with unveiled face, beholding the glory of the Lord, just like Moses, right? Only Moses had to veil his face. We with unveiled faces. We behold the glory of the Lord. The glory of the Lord is in the face of Jesus. That's what Paul says in 2 Corinthians 4, verse 6. The God who spoke out of darkness, let light shine, is shown in our hearts to give us the light of the knowledge of the glory of God, glory in the face of Jesus Christ. That's that verse. So the glory of the Lord is in Jesus. And we're being transformed in the same image from one degree of glory to another. So what happens to Moses in the presence of God actually happens to believers when we're in his presence, right? And we are changed from glory to glory. We're actually transformed. Our lives are changed. We're not perfect. We're still, struggling, but we are different. I can honestly say that I'm different as a Christian than I was 5 years ago. I'm more mature. Am I perfect? Oh, hardly. All right. But it's true. We reflect God's glory from glory to glory. So isn't that wonderful? And thank God we don't have horns. Yeah. Thank you. That's just wonderful. And I think now that Brad is back with questions, we should give him a standing ovation. Yes. So,
Every question I ask is coming from my group.
okay. So you disassociate yourself personally from anything you're about to say.
No, I'm not trying to disassociate myself. I'm
Okay.
trying to say they're maybe afraid of the wrath of God coming down on them through you. Okay. I don't know. But in tonight's study guide, there's a respond question number 1. What will you share with another person not in attendance from this evening's study? Our group's answer to that were varied and many. We were curious whether there was something specific that you were hoping for us to get out of that. And I've got another question, but I'll defer to this answer.
Well, actually,
so
the answer is no. I mean, this is pretty open, right? There's a lot of takeaways from these chapters in Exodus. And my answer in our group was give us this day our daily bread. So I'm teaching 3 classes tomorrow, and I'm going to weave that into all 3 classes. It won't be difficult. My students know those words, and yet I can break them down a little bit to really help them. Because they're students. Their problems sometimes are kind of they're the same problems, but they're amplified. Remember when you were 19, I mean, everything was almost the end of the world. So I'll just kind of try and be a little bit pastoral to them. Say, hey, I know you're worried about stuff. Our football team is 0-9. All right. I've had 5 or 6 football players, and just kind of speak into that a little bit. So no, there's no real correct answer. So yes, Pastor Steve.
I have a question for you. So we were just curious in our group if you could explain how Zechariah 12 and 13 tie into the John 19 account of the water thing. So.
Yes. And it's so nice of him, since we talked about that in our group. He's not catching me flat-footed. I actually wrote a commentary on Zechariah. So I don't know a lot about Ezekiel. I know a little bit more about Zechariah. Zechariah chapter 12, verse 10, God says, they will look upon me whom they have pierced. All right? And of course, the context in that verb there, pierced, means to kill. All right? And then if you scroll down to chapter 13, verse 1, behold, there's a fountain open for cleansing from sin and uncleanness. So what John is doing is he's very familiar with Zechariah chapter 12, verse 10, where God himself is pierced. I mean, this is stunning that God is pierced. We know Jesus is God, God the Son and the Son of God. And then John understands this next verse, there's a fountain of cleansing. So that's the Old Testament background to John 19, verse 34.